Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
So on my 25th birthday, I was by myself in Pasadena, California. I don't have trouble being alone on holidays. What led up to that was, prior to that, I had been home in Virginia with my dad, and I had some time off. There was a lot of kids in the neighborhood, and I was 24 years old, and I taught them all the games that we learned growing up in the neighborhood, and they loved it. And there was one boy in particular, his parents were going through a divorce, and he was struggling, so I spent a lot of time with him. I loved it. I loved all the time with the kids. And at the end, I'm like, yeah, I don't think I need to be a mother. Up until then, I was so focused on this idea of being a mother, and it was never occurred to me to not be a mother. And so just even that thought opened up all this space. Wow, I'm 24, I have my whole life. I don't have to just think about being a mother. So I just completely dismissed it from my life. I'm not going to be a mother. So it's my 25th birthday. I'm in Pasadena. I'm in a rented room. I went to see a movie, stopped off at a store, saw this beautiful Life magazine on the stages of the embryo growing in the womb. They have pictures of, colored pictures. So I got it. I had no attachment. I had no stuff around it. I just was looking at these pictures, and underneath each picture, they had this description of the stages, and I'm just in awe of the miracle that every one of us, all human beings and animals, go through this extraordinary process of becoming. And so in that awe, and as I was just turning the pages and reading and in this presence, suddenly it just opens up. I have no idea what a third eye was, but I would just say it was like a movie, and I just saw this vision of me having a baby. I was in a hospital. There was a man there. I couldn't see him though. He was just a little off, but he was happy to be there. And I was happy, and then it was over. And I just knew, oh, I'm going to be a mother. It wasn't maybe, or this is a possibility. This is what it is. And, with mothers, are you going to do a home birth? Are you going to do water birth? I guess I'm having it in the hospital. It's 13 years later before Julian's born. I'm just pointing that out. Sometimes when we get visions, it's not right away. But it's something I knew. Then I was around my 30s. Now I had a vision about becoming a minister, so I was really focused on that. I was in between relationships, and I knew when I had a child I was going to be in a relationship. So again, I wasn't thinking about being a mother at this point. I knew I was eventually at some point, but I wasn't holding on to it. There was a woman, she did body work. She was doing body work on me, and she was very interesting. She had a 2-year-old, and she had very interesting parenting style, and I was a little curious about it. She goes, oh, well, read this book, The Continuum Concept by Jane Leeloff. Has anyone ever heard of that book? No. I think it was written in the 70s. I'm not sure. But I just read it, not from any, how am I going to raise my child? I wasn't even thinking about it. I just thought it was curious. I was just interested. And I'm reading it, and it's beginning to make some sense to me. She's in a tribe in the Amazon visiting, and she's watching how the mothers raise their babies. And she said the thing they always hold their babies, whether they're cooking, whether they're bathing, they pass them around, or them around, but never put them on the ground unless the baby wants to. So it's all self-initiated, but unless the baby initiates it, they're holding on. And then she's making the connection with the animal kingdom, how many animals do this with their young, keep them close, hold on to them, or the babies hold on to the back. And as she's writing about it, and then she says something that intrigues me. She said, while she was watching them, the thing that she noticed about their young children was their physical sense of well-beingness, that they just seemed comfortable in their bodies. And she said, as I was watching them, I never noticed it until I had something to compare it to, but she said Western children seemed a little bit more tense, didn't seem as comfortable in their bodies. And she said, this was what she was saying, that that she began to wonder if a lot of addiction problems in the Western society came from this lack of being held, this physical in-arms process. And as I'm reading it, and I come from a family that was very English, thank you. So I'm like, I'm resonating with it. And as I'm reading it again, now I know what the third eye is at this point. My third eye, it's like a movie screen. It just like opens up and it just says, this is truth. And in that moment, I knew that's how I was going to raise Julian. And that's what we did. Later on, after we actually had him, they now have a name for it in the Western world called attachment parenting. I was still living on the East Coast when we had Julian, and they're a little bit behind there. So if I had been in at Agape, it would have been fine. But I was in, and they're like, why don't you put your baby down? Just cry it out. He'll be fine. I'm like, I'm not putting the baby down. So that's how we raised him, but it wasn't through research. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong or better or worse for anyone. I'm just saying in that moment, I got a knowing. This is what Jnana yoga is. It's called the path of knowledge. And the reason why I didn't want to say the path of knowledge before I told that story is because we think of knowledge as something intellectual. Like you do a lot of research, you think a lot about something. But that's not what this is. The path of knowledge is taking in an idea so profoundly and you're being with it that it takes you to another level. And suddenly you can see things you didn't see before. And you didn't get there necessarily through a process of elimination. You can get there that way too. Both of those experiences, note, I was reading. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't praying. I was reading. So we're going to get a little bit more into Jnana Yoga in a minute. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about these 4 weeks and the word yoga. Who can tell me what the word yoga means? Come on. Yeah, yoke. What does it mean, yoga? What was that? All right. Y'all have to go. I was going to make you work on it this week, but I'll just tell you. It means union with God. So when we talk about yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, hatha yoga is the physical yoga that we see in gyms. The intention is to know our oneness and union in God. So the 4 paths of yoga are the 4 paths to know our oneness and union in God. So this first path is one of knowledge. Bhakti yoga is the path of devotion, so finding and knowing our oneness and union in God through devotion. There's meditation, Raja yoga, through meditation, exercises and practices, and karmic yoga, which is the yoga of action, generally seen as service. So if you're very service-oriented. Now, when I read about these, the way they have been taught traditionally is that they're very sort of separate. You're one or the other. We're all of them. I couldn't separate and say, it actually slowed me down on my journey by trying to not figure out, but how do I be one? And what about these other things? I see them, but I said I'm this one. And there's no competition. There's 8 billion people of us on the planet. The way these 4 paths are going to show up are going to be unique to every one of us. What I love is, as Cher read that opening, beautiful reading, and thank you, Cher, is all these different paths. There's so many different paths, so many different ways. But what I love about these four paths of yoga is you can apply them to whatever tradition you're in. No matter what tradition, you can start seeing these 4 paths showing up. And even within the similar tradition, you can have different paths. Paramahansa Yogananda saw himself as a bhakti yoga, but his guru he saw as a jnana yoga. It didn't separate them. There's no separation here. So my invitation to all of you as you go through these beautiful and radiant 4 weeks is to be with all of them. Own all of them, but don't be attached to any of them and don't resist any of them if you can. Just be curious, be lighthearted, but make it personal. Like both be light with it, but also make each one personal to you. Listen to these as a person, because all four of them are in every one of you. So listen, like, how does this one look like for me? Okay? So that's what we're going to do for these 4 beautiful weeks. Jnana Yoga, what is it? So Jnana Yoga is a way of using knowledge or awareness to know our oneness and union in God. Oh, I just want to throw out there too, one way to use Jnana Yoga is inquiry. So you can even ask yourself a question. What does it mean? What does God mean to me? Maybe I don't use the word God, Brahma, universe, life itself, the thing itself. Whatever you use, what does that mean to you? Because one of my most interesting discussions I've been having with people is what God means to them, and everybody has different definitions. We all think we're talking about the same thing, but we're not, and that's good because God is infinite. So God has all these perspectives. When you hear the word God or the thing itself, whatever word you use, universe, how would you describe that to yourself? Because that makes a difference. If this path is about my union with it, well, what am I unifying with? Like, what does that even mean? That's a Jnana Yoga question. That's an inquiry. What does that even mean to be one with God? What am I becoming one with? What is this thing? When I describe God, what does that mean to me, and what would it look like, even in my imagination, to be one with it? Then these are 4 paths to God. We know in our teaching, we always start, there's one power, one presence, and we are one with it. We start with unification. Why do I need a path to something that I already am? Interesting inquiry. So anyways, and all of this, and if you want to activate the Jnana Yogi in you, for all 4 weeks, you're asking yourself questions about what you're hearing. You're not just hearing it, you're asking yourself questions. Because that's what gives space for what Spirit wants to reveal to us. So Jnana Yoga is a path of reflection. It's a path of where ideas are real and palpable. So the first step on the path of Jnana Yoga is just learning conceptually these ideas. We have all our classes that we do, and you probably take classes online, and you're constantly reading books and hearing podcasts, and what is all this to me? That's all the learning. We need that. That first step is really important. In fact, once I had an experience, and then I never thought about it until years later, because it was learning some new concepts about what God was. I was reading a Zen book, and it opened up my awareness of what we could be, and suddenly I remembered the spiritual experience I'd had years before, but because I didn't have the concepts, I had no way to think about it. So our paradigm, our structure of how we see the world is huge. That impacts how we perceive things, and we already know that, right? You know that, like near-death experiences. If you're Hindu, you're more likely to see Shiva. Very few Christians who have never learned about Hinduism are going to experience Shiva. They're going to experience Jesus. That what we are thinking about in our world is how we tend to experience the divine. They're very related. So being aware of ideas, how we think about things. The learning is key. What are you thinking about? What's in our mind is in our heart. This isn't just intellectual. Ideas become fully alive in us if we're reading ideas that resonate with us. The classes that you take, the ones that you really like, it's because you're reading these ideas and you're like, yes, that makes sense. And it brings you alive. You feel it, right? When you're in those classes, you're just like, yes, this is true. This is making sense to me. That's the learning that's exciting and invigorating. There's 3 steps. The second step is where all the work happens, though. The second step is intense and prolonged reflection. Intense and prolonged reflection. This is of the Jnana Yogi path. again, that's going to look different for everyone. For instance, my mother, who I would say of all the four was action-oriented, that's her main thing. Always busy, always active, and yet, when she was ironing, it was her favorite thing to do, this is what the kids would hear when she would iron. She's arguing with people. She's like she's reflecting on ideas, that even in her action, she's thinking about things. Every one of us reflects. How we reflect, how long we reflect will be different. But we reflect, and this becomes the most important piece. Because this is when we start to wake up. And the concepts, I love what Houston Smith says. He said that the things that we learned about in that first step, they're really just hypotheses. They're just concepts. But it's not until we've been reflecting and they start to come alive that they become real to us. And this happens all the time in classes or with people who've been on this journey all the time. They're like, oh my gosh, I had the most amazing realization. It was incredible. It changed me this past week. And they'll say what it is, and what they are saying is something that we have talked a lot about in class. We've heard, it's nothing new. It's nothing new. But it is new. It's real because it's come alive through them. I think we even have a greater sense of this because of social media. We have like every pearl of great price, these incredible, brilliant things as memes. And you can get on the Facebook and read one brilliant thing after another, and it becomes almost meaningless. But anything can do that. We all know the truth. We've read a million books about it. I'm amazed when maybe it's just because of my algorithm, just all the videos it's like everything we teach over and over, and all these different professions and all these different ways that people are using, it's everywhere. It does not matter until I've had the realization. That first step, I can say, this is true, and it excites me, and I like it. But it's not until I get it for myself that it becomes alive. And one of the ways we do that is through intense, I'm using Houston Smith's words because I liked it so much, intense, prolonged reflection. I've mentioned before one of the things that always I loved about reading about Ernest Holmes, that as much as he taught about oneness, that he talked about how at night he would just spend a couple hours just reflecting on oneness. And I'm thinking, what is he thinking about oneness? Like, how far does that reflection go? He didn't show his process, but just the fact that he knows there's oneness, he's got a teaching on it, and yet he's still reflecting on it. He's still contemplating about it. He's still bringing it alive in his life in that moment. What happened in that day? How is oneness showing up? In the prayer treatments and the prayer requests, where's oneness? He doesn't go, oh, I already know there's oneness. Got that down. He's still bringing it alive through his reflection. One of my favorite examples also of reflection, because I got to see the reflection process, was through Joel Goldsmith. Joel Goldsmith, chapter 3, Thunder of Silence on Power. And you can see him reflecting about what power is, what one power is, because he's thinking, I think he's doing this around World War II, and he's thinking about weapons, and first you have the rocks, and then you have bow and arrows and swords, and then eventually it leads to guns, and then it leads to cannonballs, and then bombs. And he said, it seems like power, the way we think of power humanly, is one thing has to overcome or dominate another. Like you have power over something. And so he started saying, well, how does that work with one power? If there's only one power, you don't need to have power over something, so what does that look like? What is one power when there's nothing to be a power over? And he goes into that contemplation. And I still read the chapter because I love it so much. It's just, as I'm reading, I'm following his train of thought, and it opens me, and it opens me. If your reflection should be opening you to greater reality, to the realize there's nothing fighting us because there's no power but the one power. When I first got that and found it in my own heart, I found it didn't last, but I would say for several months after that, I felt no fear because there was nothing to feel afraid of. There was nothing other. There's only the one, and that's the all power of the universe. And I walked through life completely free and open and fearless. but I still was getting it through his reflection. It helped me, it grew me, it taught me what I want to know, but I still need to continue on that reflection for myself, so I have my own inner reflections. So that's one way to use reflection. One of the other ways, probably the main way that you hear about Jnana Yoga using reflection is about ourselves. That we are our human self and our divine self. So you can ask yourself, an example would be my. Like, I have my clothes, I have my car, I have my home. And we know that we have those things. I have these things, but I'm not those things. I'm not my car, I'm not my home. And then you take that further. Well, I have a body, but I'm not my body. I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. I have emotions, but I'm not my emotions. Well, who is this I? Who is this I that has all these things but is never limited by it? And we could follow that thread of inquiry till you get deeper and deeper into this great witness, this witness that is witnessing and the I am. And so our I am starts to separate actually from our human self. Sometimes we think our thoughts are who we are. Sometimes we think our feelings are who we are. It's all intermixed. When we start to see the I am that has thoughts but isn't thoughts, has feelings but isn't feelings, has a body but isn't our body, we start to separate this absolute reality that we are and then this temporary reality and what we start to experience. And then, so the third stage, after we do this, and the third and final stage is where you become more identified with the I am, the I that has these things but is never limited by these things. And that's a freedom that's vast and oceanic. That's this causal mind that we live from. And this is the path that Jnana Yoga can take us to find our true identity. So Jnana Yoga, and there's other ways. There's so many paths, but you can also do it through inquiry to get to a non-dual reality. That's a witness reality. There's little tiny shifts, but the idea is these inquiries. What's interesting, and I was contemplating this, it seems a lot of Jnana Yoga is about moving us into the great I am. That's what unification with the divine looks like from Jnana Yoga. We become the I am because there's no other. As we go on through the 4 weeks, we'll talk about how all of these can be integrated together. But by itself, that's what Jnana brings us to. And it's so wonderful because as I was thinking about or being with Jnana Yoga, I heard an interview on a podcast with Simon Sinek. Does anyone know him? Yeah. So he has a lot of he does the kind of stuff we do, and he's very precise. He's wonderful. I like his clips. I've had a harder time with the podcast, but I was listening to this podcast. It was with Mo Gawat, who was the former chief business officer of Google, and he said by age 29 he was filthy rich. He had so much money, and it didn't bring him happiness. He started going through a depression. That was one ship. But then something really devastating happened, which is he lost his son at age 21. His son went in for appendicitis, and the surgeon made 5 errors, and he didn't come out alive. I don't know, that just, things like that shouldn't happen. So anyway, him being with what's important in life. So he's talking with Simon, and he's written a book about happiness because he felt his son Ali taught him what happiness was, because Ali was never interested in his wealth. Ali was interested in something much deeper, and he said, I want to bring Ali's wisdom to the world. And so one of the things he said he's discovered is that we are all naturally joyful, and that our journey is to let go of the things that keep us from being our natural state of joy. So he's a Jnana Yoga without even knowing it. So one of the practices that he has integrated into his life is what he calls Reflective Saturday. It's so unique. I love people's creativity. What he does is on Saturday, he has no clock. He doesn't have any technology in his room. All he has is an alarm clock, and he uses the alarm clock to go off at 2 p.m. So he knows he's going to be in his room every Saturday till 2 p.m. Nobody can interrupt him, and he has no idea what time it is. He won't know what time it is until the alarm goes off. And he uses that time to reflect. I'm like, wow. And the way it's so because he thinks everything, we're all natural joy, the way for him to get to joy is not to add on, like find what makes me happy. For him, it's to get rid of all the things that are blocking me from my happiness. So one way he uses this path of this Saturday of reflection is he goes through the week to write down all the things that cause him stress. And to either easily eliminate them if they don't need to cause him stress, and if there's some that need action items, he writes that down. But that immediately shifts his energy into letting go of the things that have been causing him stress so he can feel his natural joy. And he has another practice that he does during this time, which I really love. I haven't tried it yet. I want to just because it looks interesting. He does a timer for 20 minutes. He gave a couple exercises, but this is the one that intrigued me the most. Until 20 minutes, and what he does is, he said so much of our mind, because he's been working with Buddhist teachers and spiritual teachers, but he seems very inclined towards Buddhism, is writing down every thought that he has. So he puts on a timer, but here's the thing, as he has to write it down, he can't repeat himself. So if he said, he was using Simon, I disagreed with something Simon said. I write that down. If I come back to it in 5 minutes, I'm like, no, I can't write that down. I've already written it down. And he said, what will happen, what he has experienced anyways, is in writing everything down, and if you're done before 20 minutes, you still have to sit there. You can't do anything but be in that 20 minutes, writing any thought, any new thought. And he said, it's amazing how quickly, when you can't repeat your patterns of thought, you can put out everything you think, let your mind do a mind dump, you just can't repeat yourself, you will get to a place of total silence. And he said, it's heaven. You have no more thoughts. And he said, and then even good things will start to come up effortlessly, because that's our natural state. And our natural state will start to emerge. And he goes, and so then I go back and reread what I've written. And he said, some of it's so ridiculous, I just cross out. It's not even, I don't have any energy around it. It's just stupid, and I cross it out. Some of it has some validity, and that's when he does the action items. Here's my action item. So by the time he gets to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he's free. He's gotten rid of the stuff he doesn't need. He's got action items for the stuff he wants to move, and he can move into that day being fully present with his heart wide open. If that's not a path to the divine, I don't know what is. So that's a great exercise. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it next Saturday just to see what it's like. To get to that place of no thought through writing things down. Writing things down, I know some people aren't. So when I was saying my mom does it when she's talking, you can reflect in many ways, but I do believe journaling is really powerful because it helps us get in contact with what we're feeling and thinking and can take it even deeper. My own journey with Jnana Yoga is I first heard the word knowledge when I took an East Asian class in college, and so I just X'd it out. I hated knowledge. I'm up for all 3 of them, but the knowledge, no. Because I grew up, as you know, in a very intellectual family and very academic, and they were all atheist agnostic. So to me, what the mind was constantly trying to do was convince me that what I knew and experienced was not true, and came up with really good arguments as to why it's not true. So it would be very convincing, but I'm like, no, that's bad. And I would get mad, like in school. I was such a bad, actually wasn't a bad student, but I hated it every step of the way, because why do I have to learn grammar? People do not realize this has nothing to do with reality. It's such a waste of time, whether I use a comma, a semicolon, who cares? Nobody cared that I didn't care, though. But it's this idea of, that's how I saw knowledge. Like knowledge, thinking was the exact opposite. When I was a kid, I made a very clear idea. I'm about love. I made that choice. And then I had, as a child, an experience of divine love, which was incredible. I was all about love, not thinking. So I was very anti-Jnana yoga. So imagine my surprise. It's 1992. I've just begun my practice of putting God first every day in my life through my 3 spiritual practices. And so I started that January 1st, and exactly 1 week later, I'm taking a class with a New Thought church in Arcadia, California, Santa Anita Church. We're doing world religions. We're reading Houston Smith's book. The first section is on Hinduism. I'm reading about this path of Jnana yoga, which is knowledge, and I immediately am constricted. But I read it, and Houston Smith just sneaks it in there in that first sentence. People who are inclined towards this path tend to be very reflective. Well, that's kind of me. I never stop thinking about things. People in Jnana yoga are really, ideas are living palpable realities for them. They tend to live with their head up in the clouds because it's an alive place. And I'm reading it, and it's not the book knowledge that I'm thinking, but that. It still gets to me like that I knew. I had never seen it in myself, ever. This was the part of me that I completely rejected, and I'm sharing this because as we're going through these 4 paths, you might have a path that you completely reject, but keep our hearts open, because you never know when you'll be completely surprised. And as I'm reading it, this thought comes to me, this is who I am and my path all at once. And as I'm saying, and I was saying that as the I am, not as Harriet. It was the I am. My path and who I am are one and the same. And everything became this golden light. Sometimes it's white light. This was golden light. The walls dissolved. I was living in Brentwood in LA. It's a very nice neighborhood with big houses. But I'm in an apartment. The walls dissolve. Gold light. And I see out into the street, there's a homeless man who I used to see, and he was full of joy, and he was all full of golden light. And I was one with him, and we're surrounded by all this wealth, and it's all, like I'm one with all of it, the beauty and the wealth. And then it never really ended. And then when I was going to bed that night, there was this word, all in gold. It was just a lot of gold, and it said truth, and it was like raining, showering me in golden light. It was a big experience. And my feeling is it was such a big experience because I had such a huge, massive block that it was trying to break through and say, see who you are. Stop fighting yourself. See who you are. And I'm just saying this loving presence is there for every one of us. This is why I'm saying engage with this. Engage with this. Because it is true for every one of us. We are all on these all 4 paths in our different ways, Let it come alive in your life. So it helped me to accept that part of myself, and I did. The challenge became, as I continued on my path, I started to notice that I never really felt like I belonged anywhere. Like I'm a CSL minister, but I don't really feel CSL. I love Paramahansa Yogananda, but I've gotten initiated there, but I'm not really part of his organization. I love Shunru. I'll meditate there at the Zen Center, but I'm not really Zen. Go to Agape, love Agape, but I'm not really Agape. And it started to make me so uncomfortable. I want to belong somewhere. And that vision keeps coming back to me of the homeless guy. And I'm thinking of all the people in Brentwood. Why the homeless guy? And I recognize there is a path. Part of Jnana yoga is we're homeless. Because we're thinking, we don't grab on. The path, if you read about Jnana yoga, it's always detachment. You're not saying, this is where I belong, or I'm really gotta belong there. It's all of it. And there is an acceptance of all of it, and there's a detachment from all of it. And so part of the work that I've had to do, and especially, I would say in the last 10 years, is letting go of my desire to belong somewhere and accept that this is a big part of who I am. And if I deny it, I am denying my soul. And to accept that I am free and unlimited. And the thing that I learned from that homeless man, from that vision, was that he was in total joy. He had no longing he was it. And I'm like, I'm home. When I accept this is who I am, I'm actually home. I belong because I'm home. It's a paradox. I don't belong anywhere, and I belong everywhere. That's one of the gifts that I learned as I opened to this path of Jnana Yoga in my own life. So the question to ask yourself, again, what's in our mind is in our heart. What brings you alive? What brings you alive? Everything that you do, because we're all part Jnana Yoga. Everything that you do, there's an idea behind it. Thoughts serve the idea, but it's the idea that excites you. What is the or many ideas that when you start hearing that idea, you want to act on it. You want to become a better writer. You want to become an athlete. You want to, write a great math formula. Whatever it is, I think of Beth because she's my wonderful opposite. She loves math. It gets her to God. Whatever that is, what is the idea behind it? What is the idea that is bringing you alive? And be with it. Reflect about it, think about it, wonder about it. You don't have to know the idea. You might not have to know the action steps, but first, what is the idea? And be curious, be interested. This is what the Jnana Yoga is about. What brings you alive? What idea or ideas bring you alive? Like it gets your blood going. Because when you connect with that, you connect with your divine self. You become closer and closer to becoming one with God because you found that idea. You found the idea or ideas that are God's ideas in you, as you, through you, as the great I am. You with me? We're beginning a great journey. Let's do it, baby. All right. So thank you for being with me, and thank you for being with me this 4 weeks. And let's pray. Y'all ready to pray? And I just want to say to the girls over there, God's in you. This isn't just an adult thing. This all applies to you. In you, reflect. What's God to you? What does that mean to you? The fullness of God, right where you are. No limitations. There's no age limitations. There's no limitations for any of us. Age, gender, all of that stuff. All inclusive. No limits, no boundaries. No limits, no boundaries. This divine I am. I embrace that wonderful idea that Ernest Holmes so beautifully articulates, the I am that is in, through, and as all creation, and yet never absorbed by any of that creation. That it transcends, it is absolutely, infinitely free of time and space, of attachment and resistance. It is free, unlimited joy. It is unlimited love. It is pure peace that passes all human understanding. This is the great I am of our beingness, here, now, and always. Not just of us individually, but the entire creative experience behind all of it is this beautiful, radiant, loving, peace-filled, joy-filled I am. What a miracle to know that every one of us is an expression, a unique and powerful expression of I am. That the ideas that animate our heart, that animate our soul, that animate our mind, that animate our body are alive even now as the I am wanting to express itself uniquely and powerfully, that we are here to be seen, to be known, and to be felt as the great I am in our own unique and passionate way. How grateful I am for this great I am as everyone in this room, online, in the Bay Area, in this country, on this planet, in the great cosmos. There is no separation. There is no place where it stops and something else begins. The I am is everything, all at once, all of the time, all space and beyond. Let's just breathe into our I amness. And how grateful for I am showing up as each and every one of us exactly with the ideas that we need to fulfill our deepest joy, our deepest passions, our deepest love. The I am of us, willing to be unique, willing to be different than our neighbors, to stand in the truth and the magnificence and the glory of the living God as each and every one of us. And so in deep abiding gratitude for the fulfillment of the I am that's already happened. It's already happened, that fulfillment, that vision, that way, that will, it is all completely fulfilled here and now in the I am that transcends time and space. It is not linear, it is simultaneous, and it is happening now as all of us, and it is done. It is a beautiful, radiant miracle happening and alive as each and every one of us, as this community and all life. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, God. In deep abiding joy, in everlasting peace, I invite you all to join me now in saying, and so it is. Amen.
I walk in God in all